Hello and welcome back, or welcome to my channel if you're new here. My name is Kaylee, and on this channel we talk about spooky shit, particularly spooky books. And this particular video is going to be centered around the shittiest books I read this year, the worst books of 2022, and all of them are spooky books. So that's exciting. It's not really exciting. I hate when I read a shitty book, especially in the horror genre, because horror is my favorite thing to read. I like to be scared. I like to enjoy the book I'm reading, but that did not happen a lot of times this year. So these are the 5 that I hated the most, and they are in a particular order. So grab your drink of choice. My drink of choice today is key lime LaCroix. If you do, leave it in the comments. I'd love to know. I just say LaCroix because I feel like it's supposed to be fancy. And this is the key lime flavor. Listen, I'm not here to, this is not an ad, but I had LaCroix a long time ago and it tasted like TV static. Gross. And then somebody was like, try the key lime and the limoncello. And I did, and I'm obsessed. So that's neither here nor there. You're not here for that. That is my beverage of choice, though, and we are going to get into these 5 books. And like I said, they are in a particular order. They are in the order of the one I hated the least to the one I hated the most. And I did hate one more than any of the other ones, so strap in. Also, 2 disclaimers before we start. The first one is, in case you didn't know, I went through a monumental reading slump this year. And by monumental, I mean I did not read a single book from February to October. Nothing. My brain was not working the way I needed it to. It was like off in another dimension, floating out in the ether, okay? It was not inside my body working properly. So normally I read about 100 books a year. This year I only read 35. So I didn't have a lot to choose from in terms of best books or worst books, but these 5 stood out as the ones I disliked and hated the most. There are 2 that I absolutely hate on this list, and there are 3 that I just didn't care for. So I'm only going to have 5, and I am going to rank them from the one I hated the least to the one I hated the most. And the second disclaimer is that this is going to be a rant video, and I am going to be verbally shitting on these books. So if you like these books, it's totally okay. Don't take it personal. We all have different styles of reading. We all like different kind of books. If you don't like rant videos, or you get upset that someone is talking shit about a book that you like, maybe this isn't the video for you and you can just skip this one. But if you do enjoy a good rant video, then I think you'll enjoy this one, because I will be ranting for quite some time on these books. So with that being said, nothing like a siren in the background to really set the tone for this fucking video. With that being said, let's get started on my most hated books, worst books of 2022. So we're going to start with my number 5 pick for the worst books of 2022, and that is Night of the Mannequins by Stephen Graham Jones. And I am so upset that this book is on the list, because I like Stephen Graham Jones. I like his writing. I think he does good horror. Typically, the books I've read from him, I give 3.5 to 4 stars. So I was excited about a short little novella about mannequins killing people. That's what I thought this book was about. I thought it was about mannequins slashing people up. I thought it was a mannequin slasher, and I was here for it. I'm like, mannequins come to life, murdering people? Yes. So exciting. The back leads you to believe that that is what happens, but that is not what happens. And what does happen confused the fuck out of me. It made no sense. I was like, the main character literally goes from what seems to be a normal teenager, acting like a normal teenager, to a fucking psychopath. Out of nowhere. Where does this even come from? I was like, what is happening? I kept like flipping back because I was like, did I miss a chapter? Did I miss where this kid lost his fucking marbles? I did not. I didn't. I was like, I literally stopped probably 3 or 4 times to like flip through and be like, did I miss something? And it doesn't make any sense to me. And it's partly my fault because I went in with the expectation that it was a mannequin slasher. But I mean, I thought that because that's what the fucking back says. It says, bringing a mannequin into a theater is supposed to be harmless fun until it wakes up, until it starts killing. So I'm like, fuck yeah. Mannequin slasher. Love it. I don't need to know the specifics of how it works. I just want to see it. What happens instead, though, is a fucking convoluted mess. I could not get into it. And the ending made me so fucking angry. And each chapter made me more and more upset. I don't know. It was a lot that I didn't enjoy. Too many things. Too many, like, points where I had to suspend my disbelief. Which, listen, I love suspending my disbelief, okay? I'll do it. I don't mind. But in this case, I was like, that's kind of a common theme in all these books. What they're asking you to do as far as suspension of disbelief is like, I'm not going with you on that road. I'm not doing it. So while I didn't hate this book, I just had different expectations of it. And it is my least favorite book from Stephen Graham Jones. And it is one of the worst books I read this year. I'm sorry. Up next is my number 4 worst book of 2022. And might be shocking to some people because this is on a lot of people's top books of the year. A lot of people are obsessed with this book. Fucking, it's all over TikTok and fucking Instagram. But it was not it for me. And that is Hidden Pictures by Jason Rekulak. And there was a lot of things to love about this book, and about 60 to 70%, like my 60 to 70% mark, I was like, this is going to be like a solid 4, maybe even a 5-star book for me. I was like, I'm really liking this. Then we got to the ending, and I was like, again, what the fuck is happening? There's also some controversy surrounding this book, which we're going to touch on later. I'm not going to spoil it for you, but there is some controversy about this book that I don't necessarily agree with, but I understand. But for me, it started off so strong because, one, my favorite trope in horror is creepy kids. I love a good, scary, creepy kid story because children scare the fuck out of me. I am afraid of parenthood. I am afraid of children. So anything that has to do with scary kids, I want to read it because I'm fucking terrified. Okay? So this is about a woman who is becoming the nanny to a young boy, and he starts drawing pictures for her, and as time passes, the pictures get better and better, but they also get more and more unsettling. And the babysitter or the nanny believes that there is some fucked up shit going on, and she thinks the kid is either possessed or he's seeing ghosts. She doesn't fucking know, but there's some fuck shit going on, and she's like, okay, I gotta figure out what's going on with this little boy. So throughout the book, we are treated to what I think is a super strong point of this book is all these drawings that the child is making, and each one gets creepier and creepier, and then they start to get better and better, like he's not doing them, right? So you're like, what is happening? So that is something that I really, really liked. However, before I get to the end, it was peppered with these things that were just really irritating to me. The first thing is that our protagonist, I forget her name because I don't care, but what is her name? Missy, Melissa, I don't remember. But she is a recovering addict, and I am always interested in seeing how authors write recovering addicts because I am a recovering drug addict and alcoholic. I'm 3 years sober. Go me. Sipping my La Croix to celebrate. So I'm always interested to see how authors interpret that, okay? So for this particular character, she has gone to AA, which if you don't know about AA, it is notoriously religious. I'm also an atheist. So AA wasn't for me because of the Christianity aspect. Also, it's just it's not a setting for everyone. It's not something that everyone thrives in order to recover. And religion is pushed on you a lot, and like being saved and that kind of thing. So for me, I did not use AA in my recovery. However, I was interested in the aspect with this character. So she is a Christian. She went to AA, like she believes in God. She wears a cross around her neck. Like, her belief in God comes up a little bit throughout the book, but it's a juxtaposition to the parents of the child that she is nannying for because they are atheists. I am also an atheist. However, I find both sides of the coin in this book to be insufferable because there are very much insufferable atheists and there are insufferable Christians. So I find them both to be insufferable at a lot of points in this book. But what I don't like is how this author kind of frames these parents as being bad parents because of their atheism. So that rubbed me the wrong way a little bit. Now, granted, they are bad parents, okay? But it's not because they're atheists, which was annoying. There are just certain things about the way he writes these parents that makes it seem like because they are atheists, they are not good parents. And I was just like, this is fucking stupid. There are also racist talking points and right-wing political talking points in certain chapters of the book where I'm like, why is this here? You know what I mean? Like, oh, we have a racist neighbor. It's just so stupid. So I didn't like those parts, but they weren't like completely hindering me enjoying what was happening in the book because I felt like he was doing a good job of like keeping it fast paced and keeping it interesting. Then we get to the plot twist, which is where the controversy comes in. My problem with this plot twist is that, one, these parents all of a sudden, like, completely different people when this switch happens. And it just seems unrealistic, but maybe not. I don't know. Like, we go from these, like, what seems like the mother is this very kind and sweet woman, to this very harsh, terrible person, which if you read it, you know what I'm talking about. And it just seemed very abrupt for me. But the plot twist is where the controversy comes in, and I cannot suspend my disbelief enough to believe that this nanny did not know about this boy. I can't do it. I'm just thinking to myself, there's no way you didn't know this. If you were his nanny, you're taking him places, you're getting him ready for bed, you're getting him ready for dinner, you're getting him up and about. Like, that part for me, I was like, wait a minute. Nobody noticed this? I don't know. It was just, as soon as it happened, I was like, wait, what? Huh? The controversy that comes with this book, which I don't want to spoil it because it is a big twist. I can see why people feel that way, but I don't feel like it is what people are saying it is. I do feel like it's stupid, and I feel like this nanny should have known. So to me, it's like a very strange plot twist. But I don't think it is what a lot of people are saying it is. But I could be totally wrong about that. My issue just stems from that I don't believe it. I don't believe that this nanny didn't see this plot twist coming. That's all. So for me, this book just lost me in the second half. And like I said, I know this is on a lot of people's best of list or most excited list, but it fell short for me, especially the twist ending. Moving on to number 3. So the next book for me is actually going to be on two of my lists. It's going to be on this list, and it is going to be on my most disturbing books of 2022, because it is a very disturbing read. It is a fucked up read, and if you like fucked up shit, it's got it. This book has got it. But it is also number 3 on my worst books of 2022, and that is Tender as the Flesh by Augustina Basterica. A lot of thoughts on this book. This book is about a dystopian future where we as a society no longer eat animal meat. We cannot eat animals anymore because there was a virus that broke out, a pandemic that made them poisonous to humans, essentially. So we cannot eat them anymore. So as a society, we've decided to eat people and to harvest people for meat. And this book is from the perspective of a man who works in the human slaughterhouse and slaughters humans for consumption. And it is very disturbing. It is gross. The way that he describes things is very matter of fact and without any empathy at all. It's just his job, and he is just telling you about his job, and he has no care or concern for these human beings because he doesn't see them as human beings. He sees them as food. So right off the bat, it is very, very apparent that this book is a book about factory farming and social commentary on factory farming and how we treat livestock, told through the lens of a horror novel about a dystopian future where we eat people. Okay? That, terrifying. Love that. Let's talk about it. Love a good social commentary book. There's several problems with this. First of all, the main character is so unlikable. And I mean, I guess that's the point, but oh my God, don't like him. Marcos, I believe is his name, but he's just going through the day-to-day motions of working in a slaughterhouse, and he has zero empathy for these people. He does not see these humans as human beings. I forget what they're called in the book, but they're not called humans. They're called something else. Heads, I believe is what they're called. I could be wrong about that, but anyway, they're not called humans, and they have started harvesting people for meat. So it's not like they just started killing humans and serving them. They are harvesting people for consumption.
See, now that's some bullshit.
First of all, this book has so many chances to have social commentary on factory farming. It could talk about eco-fascism. It could talk about racism. It could talk about capitalism. So many things it could touch on that it does not, which is very frustrating. Like, how are we picking the humans that we harvest? Who decides what gets to be a harvested human and who gets to live as a human being? That's never brought up. Never brought up. Secondly, what they do to women in this book, I mean, don't get me wrong. Across the board of all genders, they're fucking people up left and right. But specifically what they do to pregnant women, here's where I talk about like the suspension of disbelief. Is there any universe where women are allowed to exist and not be brutalized? Not in the past, not in the future, not in a fantasy world, not in a dystopia. We are not allowed to exist without being brutalized anywhere. Even in this dystopian universe, we're getting the people's elbow, okay? And it is, reading about what they do to pregnant women in this book, I almost DNF'd it because I was not only just disgusted, but I was so fucking angry. It's one of the most, that particular few pages is probably top 3 most disturbing things I've read this year. It's super inhumane and vile, and I understand what the author is doing. I do. And it's a great point. It's what we do in factory farming. I get it. But women being brutalized everywhere throughout fake existence and real existence just gets so exhausting. So that part I was like, but there are also parts that I wanted them to touch on more because I was like, this is so fucking interesting. There's a part that comes up where these kids are kicking a puppy. There's a lot of animal abuse in this, by the way. Trigger warning. But these kids are kicking a puppy and they are talking about how they think the government, that this whole pandemic with the animals is a conspiracy theory because they think the government is just trying to cull the population. People could still eat meat if they wanted to, but it's, you know, the government is lying to us and they're culling the population. And I was like, oh, that's fucking interesting. Let's dive into that. Let's dive into that conspiracy theory. Government, you just want to get rid of half this population, so you're saying we can't eat the meat. I'm like, let's dive into that. We never talk about it again. They continue kicking this puppy, and that's it. We go to a new chapter. Never comes up again. I'm like, hello, perfect chance, perfect time to fucking dive a little deeper into this book. A little more than surface level, disturbing, you know, shit. Like, let's dive into it. We don't do that. Also, the thought of like these 3 teenagers kicking a puppy and just spouting off political conspiracy theories is fucking wild to me. Could you imagine like fucking 4 15-year-olds like, fuck this puppy. The government is lying to us. What? I don't know. Then there's a part, which was another cool thing that I was hoping we were going to talk about. This, in fact, would be a great story all by itself. But there's this rich man, like a Jeff Bezos type of guy, who owns a ranch. And on this ranch, you can hunt people. So what he does is he allows like D-list celebrities who owe him money. If you have like a debt that you owe to him, you can come and stay on the ranch, and if you survive a weekend of being hunted, your debt is wiped clean. And I was like, what is this fucked up shit? I was like, that's fucked up. And if you don't, then they kill you and eat you. I was like, that's some scary shit. You're like, all right, do I want to be eaten or do I get this debt paid? It's like the impossible choice. It's like, would you rather? It's like, yeah, I don't want to be in crippling debt anymore, so maybe I could survive. But I was like, this is fucking scary. It's only not even one whole chapter of the book, and then we never talk about it again. And I was like, oh, somebody needs to write that book, because that is fucking scary as shit. Could you imagine like just being so hopeless? It's like, be hunted and have your debt paid off or become a fucking meal. Also, Jeff Bezos just seems like the person who would hunt people and eat them. That's slander. Allegedly, so I don't get sued for defamation. Jeff Bezos with just like a Kathy Griffin type person with like an apple in their mouth, you know, roasted. It's getting dark. Anyway, so that was another annoying part. So I'm getting through it. It's really hard to get through because it is so fucking disturbing. Then we get to a part where Marcos, the main character, is gifted a exceptional piece of meat. So he's gifted like an exceptional specimen, which is a woman. And it's given to him as like a gift for all his hard work. And the boss is like, you can eat her. She'll be delicious. You know what I'm saying? She's grade A meat, right? But Marcos doesn't want to eat her. He wants to keep her, and he develops feelings for her, which is illegal in this universe. You are not allowed to treat the meat like a person. You cannot keep them and have them and raise them as like a pet. You have to slaughter them. So that is what Marcos is dealing with throughout this book, and he's like keeping this person and has affection for her and eventually gets her pregnant. Okay, so there's a whole plot line going on with that. But then we get to the ending. We get to the last sentence of the book, and one of the most infuriating endings of all time, one of the worst endings of a book ever, everything that this author was trying to do before that, completely ruined by the last sentence of this book. This is the worst fucking ending of a book ever. I hated it. I was so fucking angry when I got to the end. I was like, are you fucking kidding me?
Hell no, to the no, no, no. Yeah, to the no, hell to the no.
Okay, it's completely bleak, and I absolutely fucking hated reading it. Up next, I battled with the decision on which was going to be number 1 and which was going to be number 2, because I dislike these. I hate both of these books, but I think my number 1 book edges this out by just a little. And my number 2 worst book of 2022 is The Butcher and the Wren by Elena Farquhar. I don't know how to say her last. Elena Farquhar. I don't know how to say her last name. She's the lady who does the Morbid podcast. There is no fucking way that people read this book and gave it 5 stars. No fucking way. Cannot believe it. The only reason I believe this book has 5 stars is because people are supporting her because she has a true crime podcast and they want to support her. And I think that's great. Support your favorite personalities. However, this is not a 5-star book. Objectively, it's not. It's terrible writing, terrible research, and it's very boring with very little characterization. I believe people just, they probably didn't even buy it. They just were like, my person that I like put out a book and I'm going to support her, 5 stars. No, this is not a 5-star read at all. This is a 1. I DNF'd this. I DNF'd it for many different reasons that we're going to jump right into. But I'm just upset that I saw so many 5 stars for this. Normally I don't argue with people about their ratings because we all like different books. But objectively, this is a terrible book. First of all, it is set in New Orleans, Louisiana. For those of you who don't know, I am born and raised in New Orleans. I live in New Orleans. I am 1 block from the French Quarter. Okay? I've lived here my whole life. This woman has the unmitigated fucking gall to say that she researched this book for 3 years or some shit before she wrote it. I'm calling full-on bullshit. There is no way this woman read anything about New Orleans before writing this book. No way. I don't believe it. It's erroneous.
Erroneous. Erroneous on both counts. Oh, Lord.
Okay? There are so many fabrications about New Orleans in this book. That's what made me stop reading it. I stopped at page 170 something because the amount of times that I was like, that's not true. That's not here. It was so many times that I was like, there is no way she researched New Orleans. Now, I read that she's never been here. Okay, so you're going to write about a city that you've never been to? Okay, but she's never been here, but she put 3 years of research into it. No, she didn't. And the first 2 pages tell me that because we open to the serial killer holding people hostage in his basement. I'm going to teach you a lot about New Orleans in this fucking rant. New Orleans doesn't have basements. Louisiana does not have basements. Do you know why? Little history lesson, little geography. We are below sea level. Okay? That means we can't build shit like a basement because when it has a hurricane or rain, it will flood. There are no basements. Nobody has a basement in Louisiana. You can't. You can't. You couldn't even get a permit to put a basement in your house because it will flood. So right there, I was like, research? I don't think so. The next and most upsetting of the discrepancies in this fucking book is that she writes about St. Louis Cemetery number 1, which, for those of you who don't know, St. Louis Cemetery number 1 is a very famous cemetery. It's supposedly very haunted. A lot of haunted, ghost shows have talked about it. It's been on a lot of haunted documentaries, but it is notably most famous for 2 things. 1, Marie Laveau, the voodoo queen of New Orleans, is buried there. And 2, the mausoleums are above ground. We don't bury people in the ground in New Orleans. Why is that, kids? A little louder. We're below sea level. That's right. Same reason we don't have basements. Because back in the day, we would bury people in the ground and their caskets would come floating up, and we would have dead people in the streets, okay? So we stopped doing that. And now in New Orleans, you just aren't burying someone 6 feet in the fucking ground, especially in this cemetery. That's why I DNF'd the book, because I was like, there's no fucking way this lady researched New Orleans and just made this whole scenario happen. It's insanity. Can't get behind it. Aside from all the discrepancies that I didn't like about the book, it's just lazy writing. She uses a lot of the same words and phrases over and over on the same pages, if not the same three. Like, you'll flip a page and then it's the same word again or the same statement again. It's just, I feel like she didn't have a good editor, maybe, or a publisher, but I also just feel like this is kind of like a cash grab because she has a popular true crime podcast. So she was like, it doesn't really matter what I put out. They'll push it for me. I just can't believe an editor read this and was like, yeah, that's great. It's not. I think the most frustrating thing for me, though, besides all of those discrepancies and the lazy writing, was a certain phrase that she says, where she talks about this serial killer is killing people he goes to school with and things like that because he can't murder prostitutes and people on the margins of society because it will cause too much of a social justice uprising, and he won't be able to do it without consequence. Which, as someone who supposedly has a very popular true crime podcast and who researches true crime, what a dumb fucking thing to say.
This is the stupidest answer. Stupidest thing I done heard. What are you, an idiot?
That is the most idiotic thing you could say as a true crime podcaster. What the fuck do you mean? What do you mean? There are so many serial killers who prey on marginalized people, specifically prostitutes and people who do drugs, because they know no one gives a fuck about them. Are you kidding me? Gary Ridgway, Robert Pickton. Hello? Gary Ridgway murdered almost 50 prostitutes before he got caught. Robert Pickton had a farm where he brought who knows how many sex workers, and no one came looking for them. No one fucking cared, and he let his pigs get rid of them. The Cleveland fucking Strangler, which is the one that disturbs me so deeply, had 2 of his victims escape him, running naked in the street, covered in blood, into a 7-Eleven where the store owner kicked them out and told them never to come back because they were fucking trash. They ran inside these stores screaming, please help me, this man just tried to murder me, and they were kicked out and told not to come back because they were trash. There's a documentary, I'm gonna go on a tangent here. There's a documentary called The Unseen that is about the Cleveland Strangler, and they interview the store owner that encountered one of his victims who ran into his store covered in blood screaming, please help me, this man tried to kill me. And he told her to get the fuck out of his store because she was disgusting and she was trash. And this man looks into the camera on this documentary and says, she was fucking trash. I don't want her in my store. No one cares about her. I think about the Mesa Bone Collector, who's never been found, who murdered multiple sex workers, even a pregnant sex worker and her unborn child, and buried their bones in Arizona. And nobody cares and nobody goes looking for them. I think about all the missing, murdered indigenous women who have been going missing for years and no one gives a flying fuck about them. and you have the fucking balls to put a statement in your book as someone who works in true crime that says he can't murder people on the margins of society because it would draw too much attention. When has it ever drawn attention? I am a sex worker. I have several friends who are sex workers, people who are street-based sex workers. When has anyone ever given a shit about them? I don't know. That blew my fucking mind. I was like, there ain't no fucking way you wrote that, lady.
See, now that's some bullshit.
Sorry, had to go on a little tangent. I'm not suspending my disbelief enough for you to say that he couldn't murder sex workers because people would notice and cause a fuss. That's such bullshit. People should notice and people should cause a fuss, and there should be an uprising in social justice when anyone is murdered, but specifically and especially sex workers, because they are so marginalized and because people don't think that they are worthy or valuable members of society. It would be wonderful if there was a social justice uprising for marginalized people when they are killed. But that's not the case. Oh my God. Anyway. So there's a lot to love about this book. If you want a generic serial killer with no characterization and lazy writing with facts, it's upside down because that's what I think about it. With facts that are not researched, this is the book for you. Hate it. Need a sip of my key lime. We've reached the #1 spot. And like I said, it was a battle between this one and the book I'm about to talk about for #1. But this one edges it out just a little bit because the entire time I was reading this book, I was like, I hate this book. And I didn't DNF it, and I should have. The worst book that I read in 2022 is called The Unseen by Brian Smith. And I have an entire video dedicated to this book and why I hated it. So I'm not going to get into it too much in this video. I'm going to link that video below because for those who watched it, I don't want to repeat it. But this book it's horrible. It is so terrible. It is one of those books where you absolutely know that a man wrote this book, and I could not stop rolling my eyes. I hated every fucking character in it. I hated every choice in it. It was just one of the worst books I've ever read, much less for 2022. It is the worst book I've read in 2022, but one of the worst books I've ever read. And I was so frustrated because when I read the synopsis, I was like, this book is going to be right in my alley. I'm going to fucking love this book. It is about a woman who frequents Comic-Con conventions, and at this one particular convention, she meets up with this man who says that he has a horror videotape that no one has ever seen. It is a one-of-a-kind, and he wants to show it to her. And from there, we are on this journey of this horrific videotape that makes people act violently and that exists from another reality. Basically, it has never existed in this world. It's from an alternate reality, and somehow it has ended up here. And I was like, this fucking book sounds dope. Sci-fi, horror, fucking scary videotape. I was thinking something like The Ring, which is one of my all-time favorite horror movies. I was like, I'm gonna fucking love this book. I did not. I did not love this book. There was so much to hate about this book. The main character is fucking insufferable. She is terrible. She is what a man envisions as a badass, independent bitch who she just made so many stupid fucking decisions while simultaneously the author is making us feel like she's supposed to be the most badass chick and she don't take shit from anybody, yet she was taking a lot of fucking shit, okay? Then there are so many instances where women in general in the story are making the dumbest fucking decisions, and I'm like, What is happening? It's supposed to be a slasher, and yeah, people die, but I didn't care. I didn't care that they died. I was like, yes, they should be dead because they're so fucking stupid. I did not care about one person in this fucking book. I hated them all so very much. I don't think I've ever hated a cast of characters more. There were so many times in this book where a man tried to murder a woman and she immediately fucks him. She can't wait to suck his dick. She immediately wants to ride his cock. Like, I'm like, what is happening in this fucking book? A man wrote this. There is no way on God's green fucking earth that you can put a knife up to a woman's throat and threaten to murder her, and 2 minutes later she's like, why did you scare me like that? You didn't have to scare me. And then she's like, let's go fuck in my car. No, absolutely not. No. No. I'm going to insert a few moments from my vlog about this book right up in here so you can see what I'm talking about. And who just threatened to slit her throat as he puts a butcher knife in her side, like the side of the car door, and they drive off to a lover's lane type area, and she starts to give this man head. On what planet would any woman where you just threatened to slit her throat take you somewhere to suck your dick? Hello? Like, pushes her down and is like searching, and she's like, I don't have it. My friend Cassie stole it from me, you piece of shit. And he's like pissed off. Then what happens? Can you guess? They have sex. It was absolutely terrible. Like I said, I go deep in depth in this book in my previous November wrap-up video, which I'll link below if you want to go watch my full rant on this fucking book. But it was terrible. And it has a sequel. A fucking sequel. And you know what aggravates me about it is, I bet all the answers I want are in that sequel, but I hated this book so much that I don't even give a shit about the answers. I don't care. I hope everyone continues to die. All of them. Oh my God. This book, like, if smoke could come out of my ears like a cartoon character, it would have at so many points in this book. There were like 3 or 4 points where I literally wanted to fucking frisbee the book across the room. I don't know why I didn't DNF it. I just kept thinking, it's got to get better. It must. Mustn't it? It must not. It did not. It was terrible. Worst book of 2022. Let's give it all a round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. The Stinker Award for the worst book of 2022. So that's it. That is my top 5 list of the worst books I read in 2022. And they were all stinky little stink bombs. Did not like any of them. I hope you enjoyed this video, however. I hope this video was not a stink bomb for you. And like I said, if you like these books, I think that's great. I think it's great that we all have different tastes in reading. Just because I don't like a book doesn't mean that you have to dislike the book. If you love the book, I think that's great. In fact, if you love any of these books, you should tell me why. I want to know. Let me know why. I think it's fun to hear other people's perspectives about things that I don't like. You know what I mean? But anyway, I really, really hope you enjoyed this video. I had a lot of fun making this. It's nice to rant about things that you don't like, you know? I like to be negative sometimes. I'm a Capricorn. We live in pessimism, so it's fun for me. But I will have vlogs where I talk about these books listed in the description if you're interested in watching my full thoughts on some of these. And I will also be putting out my best books of 2022 at some point this week. So I'll have more fun things to talk about and I won't be so negative. You'll enjoy that one a lot more. And I'm so happy to have had you back. Thank you for being here, and I hope to see you on my next video.